Welcome to Cross Platform Podcast, where we discuss how to solve productivity problems across platforms. I'm Augusto Pinaud,
And I'm Art Gelwicks.
and in this section, we're bringing tips of the week. So, the first tip of the week, and we're discussing this in the pre show, is self care. What are the self care activities that you do? And when you feel the pressure coming up, what's your next action? And the tip for me is schedule them. As soon as you feel that the thing is going to go crazy, that's the moment to book those self care. Block the calendar right away. Do not let yourself to get to that level and then try to book the calendar because that usually doesn't work.
Yeah, self-care is one of those things that gets the short shrift, I think, in most people's just,
Consistently.
yeah. And it's one of those things because I don't know if that we were raised with this idea that self-care equates to being lazy. It equates to being selfish. Um, but I forget who it was that said it. I know it's attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but I don't know if it's actually him that said it. But he said he'd rather spend half a day sharpening an axe
Mhm.
and cutting wood, and then cutting only like an hour's worth of wood, than using a dull axe all day long because it's much more efficient. And I know I butchered that, but you can look it up and find out exactly what it said. But
Yep.
when it's all said and done, if you're not doing that kind of self-care activity, if you're not sharpening the saw, as the chestnut goes, then you're not going to be working at your optimal level on whatever you're working on. You're going to
Correct.
be distracted. You're going to make mistakes. Depending on what you're doing, you could have accidents. Um, there are things that you just need to be at your peak to be able to do. And if you don't have that downtime to reset, you're just asking for trouble. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's I agree. It's one of those tips that dedicating time, and we were talking about this before the show. I just want to share this with the listeners. Um, this can be a really hard block to find a spot for
Oh, yeah.
in your schedule. Um, if you're doing time blocking or something like that, this should be the first block you schedule. Find that block, work with a clean calendar, find a place, put that block in, and then schedule around that. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to place the value on that block that you need to, and you either won't put it in place or it'll get pushed around because of other quote higher value
Correct.
things. In neither case is a good thing.
And no, it's not. So the first tip you have is a new screen protector that you got.
Yeah, so I ordered myself one of the paper-like screen protectors for my tablet. You can find them on Amazon. That's where I got this one. It's called the Zoega. Um, and it covers the full screen of the tablet itself. It went on. Now, I have a personal pet peeve about screen protectors that don't go on easily. Little bubbles underneath, even one little bubble will drive me bonkers with a screen
Right.
protector. I will take it off. This thing went on, piece of cake. Alcohol wipe, cleaned the screen off, laid it right on, just worked on great. What's nice about it is one, it's a matte finish, so it gets rid of all the glare on the tablet. But second, using a digital stylus, it actually feels like you're writing on a piece of paper. They didn't oversell this. A lot of times I think it's like, oh yeah, how realistic can it be? No, I sat here today and I wrote with my digital stylus on a notepad that I had next to it, and then went back to the screen protector, and it feels the same, which means my handwriting is cleaner now, it's more accurate, and I'm more likely to use this device for the handwriting part. Plus, heck, the tablet's protected. So for a less than $20 investment, I've now changed the dynamic of how I'm going to use this particular device. So if you're a digital stylus person, especially for drawing, I can imagine this would be fantastic for drawing. Uh, Definitely look into one of these paper-like screen protectors. I think it's worth the money.
Awesome. So you have made fun on past episodes about the funny pack that I have on my
I would
iPad. The fanny
never
pack,
make
sorry.
fun of your
Oh,
Darth Vader fanny pack.
I have that in record. So it's recorded already, and our listeners have seen that. Anyways, one of the things that I add to that bag was a set of wire health headphones. Do I have the AirPods? Yes. Do I use the AirPods every day? Yes, and yes. But a couple of times I have left the AirPods behind. A couple of times they have run out of battery. And having that hardwire, plug it in, and continue the conversation has been priceless. That said, remember, if you have that, make sure you have the adapters that you need. Because my iPad do not have a 3.5, so it requires a USB-C, but then my phone still requires an old Apple Lightning. So make sure not only that you get the hardwire headphones, but you get also the adapters so you can really connect them and save your bacon.
Absolutely. I mean, the connectors, just those little extra cables, and we've talked about this not
Mhm.
on this show, but well, no, we may have. I don't remember. We have to go back. But that cable pack that you put in your bag and has
Yes,
those little connectors, whether you're talking about your QI charger or just multiple connectors for multiple devices, that can make or break a trip.
that will
Absolutely can
make or
make it.
break a trip.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, there's no question about it, and it's surprising the first time you go into your bag and you realize you have the cable you need and you didn't intentionally put it in there, but it was already in there to start.
Mhm.
You'll never go back. You'll never go
You
back.
will never go back. I agree with
But
you.
but here's a tip: fight the urge to dismantle that pack in times of urgency. Like if you're desperate for a cable somewhere, don't steal it out of that pack. You can
Nope.
borrow it, but when you're done, put it back.
Put it back. Yeah.
So, because otherwise, then you have the pack and then it's missing pieces, and it's like opening the first aid kit and there's no band aids in there. It's like, all right.
So the next one we have is from you. You have a Wi-Fi repeater. So I'm guessing you have been enjoying great internet lately.
Well, what I got, and I'm going to hold it up for those who are watching. It's a little because it's not plugged in right now because it needs to be plugged in. Move over this way. Just a little standard repeater. It's not
Right.
particularly expensive. I believe this was about $35. What you do is you just plug it into a regular outlet. You turn it on, you connect it to your Wi-Fi, and what it does is it picks up the signal and then rebroadcasts the signal strengthened. So it doesn't increase your speed. I mean, if you've got like gigabit Ethernet, it's not going to be pushing gigabit through it. But the
Right.
idea is to increase the coverage and the strength of the signal rather than just having dead spots. And I've used this a couple times recently. One, I used it on my mother-in-law's house where she has a blink camera on the outside of her
Okay.
house, and it's a brick wall between her house, the camera and the Wi-Fi repeat or the Wi-Fi um, router that's in her basement. So one of these plugged in on the opposite side of the wall, connected. It's like night and day, amazingly different. I'm going to do the same thing with this. Plug it near my back door, so my backyard's covered. So when the
It's
weather
covered
gets
now.
warm, I can sit on the deck and things. These are the types of things. The tip is don't settle for crappy Wi-Fi. That's really what it comes down to. Don't settle for garbage Wi-Fi. And I know it's easy to get into things like the mesh network devices and things like that. Honestly, I had a set of those and I disconnected all of them because I never found them to be worthwhile. This type of a thing, I think, makes all the difference. But yeah, the tip is just don't settle for garbage Wi-Fi. If you have poor coverage, find a way to boost it. Clean it up, especially if you're in an older house, because most older houses like mine are when you got chicken wire inside of plaster walls, it's like a giant Faraday cage. So
Yep. I have a mesh network and I really like it because when I discovered that there was a little issue, I just went and bought another mesh and solved the problem that way. So it's not an repeater, but it works pretty well.
now let me ask you about your mesh network. Do you know which one it is?
Yes, I have an Eero.
Okay, so you like that one.
Yes.
I got the one that Comcast offered. I forget. whichever one. Matter of fact, I have one of them sitting on the floor here because it hasn't. That's about as good as it is.
Right.
I was very disappointed with their offering. So if you're going to look into a mesh network configuration, apparently Eero works great. I
Eero
haven't.
works well. I have installed Google, the Google One at friends' houses, and they work pretty well too.
Okay, so that's, and this is actually could be a whole different episode that we do.
Hmm.
There are some very useful tools to help you figure out your Wi-Fi. I actually have an app that's a Wi-Fi heat map app on my phone that allows me to draw a floor plan and then go to various spots in the floor plan and measure the signal strength at that
Right.
point and create a heat map so I can determine where there are problems and where there aren't, and ergo be able to apply the extenders accordingly. That little bit of effort, you take an hour to do that,
Yeah,
all of a
but then
sudden
you
it's
will
like,
have solid internet
yeah,
everywhere.
it's like night and day.
Yeah.
So,
And the last one we have is an external battery. Okay, I got a Qi charger battery. Okay, and my phone doesn't have the magnet, the fancy Apple thing. Okay, but it can do Qi. So this one has some suction cups. It works well. But what was more interesting, and the reason I bring us a tip, is I carry that thing on my back consistently. But over the weekend, my daughter, we were doing something and she ran out of battery. But she was going to go out with her friends. So now you are in that dilemma. Okay, geez, I don't want you to go without a phone. So I give her my battery. I have a cable.
mhm.
Her phone is not, but that battery had the cable. So I just give her the cable. But it's still, it has the suction cup. So she put the battery with the suction cups on her phone, connected the cable, charged her battery, and was able to leave. So these batteries now are getting to give you the multiple options. But again, most people don't need the battery with them on the phone or the thick case with the battery. The battery will last, but it's
Hmm.
for those moments where it will make a significant difference.
I have to say, I really like that combination of wireless charging with easy connection to a device. So that
Mhm.
suction cup wireless charging combination is inspired to me. And I say that because as a guy who used to carry multiple external batteries with me when I would go to places like a soccer tournament, you knew you weren't going to be anywhere
Right.
near a charger all day long. You could be shooting video on your phone, um, any number of things. You're going to burn through the battery. That combination where you don't have a cable hanging and you don't have the battery tucked in your pocket, that's
It is
just
fantastic.
that's a great idea.
Yeah. So with this, follow us where you like to listen to podcasts, like us, or subscribe to us and leave us a review. You can also interact with us in personalproductivity.club. We're Augusto Pinaud and Art Gelwicks. See you next time on your favorite device.